How can you invest and make money in today's real estate market? Welcome to the Successful Investor Show, where we talk with successful real estate investors, business owners, and busy professionals on their journey to wealth. They share their best ways and advice to make massive gains in today's market. Make sure you are subscribed so you never miss an episode. Now, here is your host, Doron Nissim.
Welcome everyone to the Successful Investor Show, where we talk about how to passively invest and create passive income and generational wealth through real estate and businesses. I'm your host, Doron Nissim, and I've been investing in real estate for the past 15 years, and I love it. And today I have the pleasure to have my dear friend, Al Nicoletti. Al, how you doing, brother?
Doron, it's been too long, man. I'm so happy to be seeing you and talking to you and being on the show, and it's been too long.
Definitely. I'm so excited to have you here. I remember the first time we did a podcast 3 years ago. So Al has been a real estate attorney for the past 6 years, probate attorney. He specializes in probate in the state of Florida, and he's amazing in probate. He did probate in 1 day, completed probate in 1 day. So, I mean, he has crazy stories about probates and crazy stories about real estate. And also, he's a host of his own show, Al Nicoletti Show. He talks with real estate investors and business owners, and he's been transforming the business since then. So, Al, I want to hear everything about your show and your business. Tell us.
Yeah, the show. I mean, that's been going on. You were one of my first guests. When I had that bright idea hit me, all of a sudden I was on the couch and I was like, I'm going to do a show, and I'm going to get guests. I got to have Doron on the show. So that's been going on 3 years. And when you came on the show, we were doing pre-record. We were just doing Zoom calls. I had no background, no studio. And about 6, 7 months later, at that time, I left the law firm I was at, went out on my own. And I said, you know what? I'm going to build out my own studio. I'm going to work from home. I'm going to, do all this stuff. And ever since, we do the shows now live on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. We bring guests on the show. At first it was, let's bring Florida people on, but then all of a sudden it became, let's bring everybody on. And the show's morphed over the last 3 years. We get into a lot of real estate. It could be land, commercial, Airbnb, short-term rentals, niche areas, bring on people with probate. We also bring on people with marketing and branding and different things, how it's like real estate adjacent. And this year, we've actually done a twist to it a little bit, bringing on some people to talk about the mental side to entrepreneurship and mindset, and being able to find things that make you more productive and sharp mental acuity. Because we could talk about buying and selling properties and how to do it creatively all day. At the end of the day, you have to have energy and sharpness to be able to do it, and what you're doing to help perform at that level is important. So we bring those people on now too, especially after my whole health journey that I went through. It's so important. I mean, if you want to be that entrepreneur that does high volume cases, you can't just be doing what you were always doing. You have to keep changing it. So that's the show. I mean, it's rolling. We're in season 4. We're gonna have a summer season, and then take a little break, and go on to the fall season, and we'll see what happens from there.
Wow, it's exciting, and I'm loving your show and everything that you're doing. And I mean, you're talking about the mindset and everything, and you're absolutely right. I mean, you can be an amazing business person, and you can have so much knowledge. But at the end of the day, if you don't have energy and your emotions are down and you're just feeling like you don't have the energy to do something, then you're not going to do anything. And energy is everything. And it's actually, I hear Tony Robbins talk about it a lot, that energy is everything. Energy, emotions. And if you have the right energy and emotions, you can be successful without even knowing anything. But right. It's everything, and I love that you actually focusing on that right now on your show. So I wanted to ask you. You talked about going into being your self-employed, opening your own practice. What happened there, and what made you make that transformation?
Well, when I moved to Jacksonville, I brought with me this idea of trying to market to probate and get more probate on the legal side. And at that time, there weren't many probates that were coming up. And then I started speaking in the community more, being out there more. And then some deals came in, got the results done. People were mind blown that I was doing them. This was pre-COVID when we could go into the courthouse in 2 to 4 days. I mean, we're
Wow.
doing file order. People were like, what? Like you could do that. So, that started a whole roll. And then from there, it just took off, right? So, with probate and being able to blow it up, it's been what it's been. So
Yeah.
this has been the niche.
Wow. Yeah, and I love that. And probate is very hard to understand. For real estate investors, it's very hard to understand, why do I need to do this? And also for homeowners, they usually like, I don't need to do anything. I just want to sell my house. I just got this house, I inherited, and I want to sell this thing, and now I'm stuck.
Yeah. And we get those
So,
all the time. We hear so many investors over the years. I mean, like you said, I've been doing it six years, almost 6.5 years. It's crazy. I could say that now. Cause like when I first started, I was like, I've only been doing it for 6 months,
yeah,
and now it's different. So you learn so much on the business side. And when I was doing this with investors, I mean, so many people were coming to me, and eventually I got to the point where I had all my marketing was in place, my ability to bring in cases was in place. So I was already bringing business to where I was then. And then at a certain point, I just was like, I can do my own thing. I mean, I'm bringing enough
exactly.
cash flow to cover myself. I'll hire an assistant, and we'll go from there. I mean, I was doing good. I mean, I was making money. And it's crazy. I could have left probably a year earlier. I still think about
Wow.
like what that would have been like, because I still was doing good, but I would have been totally on my own, just me still, which would have been fine. But it's crazy how it all transpired and all the cases came in. And Doran, investors, realtors run into these probate issues daily. I mean, daily they got issues. I'm sure you can think of a handful that you're like, hey, Al, I got this thing. I mean, it's a half interest and we got to do the probate. The first one's done, but the second one's not. And we get these all the time. We just picked up one where there's 60 acres of land in a
Wow.
great county, and it's not the South Florida areas, because that'd be like, what's that price? But it's in a prime area where a lot of people are coming in developing, and you would never believe that 60 acres would be a probate property that needs to go through probate, and these people held it for 40, 50 years and
Wow.
never did it. They just paid taxes and just held it. So we see these situations, they're popping up. And, what I did with probate was I hammered it home. I mean, it's the
Wow.
one word that you've heard me mention for the last 3 years. You haven't heard me stop talking about it. So the first thing you're like, wait a second, where's Al? What's we doing with probate? So that's what's happened.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that. I mean, there are so many scenarios, so many cases. I mean, what can you tell us? What was the most, I would say, either challenging or the best probate story that you can tell us?
Wow, there's so many wackadoodle stories I could get into. We had one recently. I haven't actually told this on any podcast yet because it just got done. We had one where the title was really messed up. I mean, you're talking the guy on the deed allegedly died maybe 1970s, maybe. I don't even, they don't even know. But the deed was like 1955 or something. It was deep, deep, deep. And he owned like half. And then these other people own the other half. And it was crazy because when underwriting first looked at it, they were like, oh, we got to do all these things on title. And then the next thing you know, they said, oh, no, we just got to focus on this guy. Like ultimately, this guy owned 100%. And so the investors are like, who do we find? I said, well, you got to do your skip tracing because this is the family tree. I mean, I talked to this guy months ago and I went through the whole family tree. I was like, these ultimately are the people. These are the heirs. And so it was a challenge because one of the heirs, one of the ultimate people, didn't want to participate. And it wasn't that they were against the sale; they just didn't want to be bothered. And you would say, Well, let's incentivize them, right? Let's
Right.
offer. She didn't even want money. And so there was no way to get her to cooperate. So we're like, all right, how do we go around this? So the first thing we're like, all right, the guy on the title's dead. Where's his death certificate? Couldn't find it. Couldn't find it. And so the next thing you do is you try to find any evidence of death. There's none. But we know he was so old, he had to be 100 by like 1970. Like he was so old, he had to be, there's no way he's alive. So we were like, what do we do? Like, I had to make some consults with some people that have ever seen, nobody's seen that before, where it's, I mean, you declare people, it's very rare concept about declaring people dead. But when you have nothing and the circumstances show it, you roll with it. So we ultimately did. We filed it as the guy has no death certificate, nothing. We're going to declare him dead. And so we got the court order authorizing the sale. But the underwriter came back and said, hey, no, we need you to do all these other probates. And we were like, oh my gosh, if we have to do that right now, it's going to take another, like, Doron, it would have been crazy. Like, you know me with probates, I'll do 7, 8 probates, but this would have been really crazy getting participation. Well, we found a way around all of that. We did this wild motion. We filed it in court, and the judge was like, yep, perfect. Let's sign off. Like declaring all these people, bennies and stuff, done. Got the whole thing done.
Wow.
And it wasn't this like massive explanation. It wasn't this massive hearing. It was like, here it is. Here was the motion. Judge signed off, and we gave it to underwriting. Underwriting said, we're good.
Wow.
I mean, it was so crazy because like there's no playbook for that. There's no, like, when you get into some of these deals, people think, oh, like, isn't it just like pressing a button or filling? It's like, no, it's like some of these things have to be truly laid out, like created. And this was totally created to satisfy title insurance. So crazy. And they're getting everything going now. So that was one. We had another deal where the title was so messed up. It was going to go to tax deed auction in 3 days. And the deal was amazing. Like the numbers, they were going to buy it for 10, commercial property, land. Wow. Yeah, big area too. It's commercial, everything. So they said, Al, we got this great deal. Can you take a look at it, because it's going to auction in 3 days, and there's a lot of spread. When you tell me there's a lot of spread, I'm like, all right, well, let's go. Right? Not a $2,000 deal that you're flipping for $6,000. I'm not going to go on. But so we found this deal, and I did the whole analysis. And ultimately, there were 3 beneficiaries. One died before, and it ultimately became 2, and this other like lady. And so I said, perfect. I said, all right, let's look at the title. Looked at the title, 8 people on title. I was like, how many people are alive? He said 2. I said, wait a second. Are you telling me we got to do 6 probates? 6. Doron, when I tell you we did 6 probates, we did all 6. We found death certificates from people in 1950, 1970, 1990. I mean, way back. And we solved the whole puzzle. They bought that thing for 10. They flipped it for $210,000.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Wow.
So, yeah. And obviously we got paid good too, because we had a ton of work to do in time, and we had to get investigators. But some people don't realize that sometimes the messiest deals can be the best deals. But what people miss is the numbers. Mm-hmm. Like the hypothesis of doing 8 probates sounds fun, except for the fact of, is the spread even there? Right. Are you going to find a buyer willing to cover not only the probate attorney costs, but at the point where you're also making the money as well? Because if the answer is no, it's not a deal.
Wow. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the spread is always in your mind, but when you go to probate, when you get to probate, you don't actually even know what's going to happen, how much time you need to spend on it, and how much resources you need to spend on it. So it's pretty difficult. But when you have an expert like you on the case, it's going to be good.
Well, I think where what's really been beneficial is this is the niche I get into. This is what I do on a daily basis. I've done over 400 of these.
Wow.
So I think the experience of constantly seeing like, oh, we've seen that before. Oh, here we go again. Oh,
Yeah.
remember that one. Oh, so when you've seen about 85% of the same scenarios over and over, and I say that 85 because like there's still wacky, wild scenarios we haven't seen. But when you
Right.
see it, you become knowledgeable about it.
Wow.
And people look at you and say, you're the expert on it. Well, maybe so, because I've seen it 400 times,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely come with the experience, but you have to be super creative and to understand the whole scenario to be able to actually solve it. And you're like, I love that because you can solve all those problems and all those issues, and you can become an expert just by being creative. And I love that thing. And there are not so many attorneys, even probate attorneys, that will want to do stuff like that. They usually will say, no, it's too much, it's too messy, I'm not doing these kind of things. And you're actually doing that. So, and that's amazing. And being in your network and having access to you as a real estate investor, I think it's a big thing. It's a key to being successful in real estate and in business, to have a network of people that are expert in their field.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the creative side for sure. That's the best part about this, right? There are ways to get these things done.
Yeah.
And I think it's taken me a while to really like say it, like it just outwardly project it, but like you can get creative and do these things. But ultimately, and I go back to this point, is the money there in the deal?
Right.
Because if the money's not there, like for example, if you have $100,000 spread on a deal, and you know that the buyer's going to come in and it's a huge developer, they're going to tear it down, do something crazy with it, and you're snatching it up for 20,000 based off the repairs, and it's just not, that's the value of it, and it's a super messy deal where it's going to require 4 or 5 probates, or maybe one probate that's a super wackadoodle, and we're missing an heir, and that it all lines up. You would rather have $60,000 versus zero if the probate costs 20,000 to do a super wackadoodle, right? Yeah. So like, I had somebody call me, this is a great example for your listeners, which is, the land deals are the toughest deals sometimes because they're the smallest spreads. Mm-hmm. In some areas are big spreads, metro areas. But I had somebody call me one time and they said, hey, Al, I got this property. I think it needs it's titled in a trust, but they can't find the trust. So I'm like, okay, like, let me listen to this. And I said, I didn't even like get into the trust. I said, what's the deal? She said, I'm buying it for 2. I said, what are you assigning it for? She said 6. I said, not a deal. I was like, no way. I didn't even get into the lost trust because to do something creative costs a lot of money to do. And if the room isn't there, it's not happening. If she told me I'm buying it for 2 and I'm selling it for 80, I'd be like, all right. Yeah. So money and numbers and running numbers is everything in our business. And it's really overlooked, especially in probate. These people, Doron, they're like P word, probate. Like, they're worried about the probate, but they forget, can we even do this?
Yeah, and it's a great point that you bringing up, because probate attorneys will never ask you that. They will never ask you how much money you have in the deal, things like that. They will say, oh, you need a probate? Okay, it's this and this, send me the check. Yeah.
You never know what you're going to get with that either.
Exactly.
And that's what gets so dangerous too, that I've seen on the title end, because I feel there is a difference between a probate attorney and a probate attorney that actually sees the title end of things. Because I've seen scenarios where people will say, hey, we just need one person to sign off on everything, and the probate attorney is going to get the court order. Then they get the court order that says the person can sign off on the homestead. And then the title company goes, we're in receipt of your order, but you need all 10 heirs to sign. And then everybody's like this. And that's the disconnect, is like, you need to be working with someone that's going to say, okay, I'm the probate attorney, but I also know I got to work with the title company. And because at the end of the day, title company says no, or this is what they want, we got to do it. I mean, otherwise the thing's not getting closed.
Sucks, but yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is sometimes. But yeah, I wanted to ask you, I mean, probate takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and you started your podcast 3 years ago. So how can you balance, and you actually, right now you're a speaker also, and you do gigs and speaking. So how can you balance your business of probate attorney and your podcast and your speaking things? So how can you do that?
Very, very good question. It got pretty tricky this year, a lot, because some events were during the week when I have the show at night. So we try to like be really careful when I leave, when I fly, or when I drive, or when I go. But the first thing is I schedule the podcast at 9 o'clock at night. Why? During the day I'm working. I mean, Doron's got a potential probate, and we got the consult. It's at 4, it's at 5, it's at 3. That's the time I got to work. And so the show's at night because nothing's happening at night. So it's being able to strategically schedule when you do something, right? So that way I'm like, nope, 9 o'clock at night, we go live, we bang it out. That's it. The travel is tricky too, because I got to work. I got consults. I don't have another Al, I don't have somebody doing consults. I could hire 3 as 4 or 5 assistants. Doesn't solve my issue. It's something that I'm working through business right now about how do I put somebody in my place to replace myself, which is a really interesting concept. But the traveling, I've gotten strategic on it. Right now, I mean, when I went on tour, I said, all right, I'm going to go to 5 places. I'm going to do it all at one time. Because all those RIAs could have said, hey, can you come in June? Hey, can you come in August? Hey, I told them all, I was like, can you do this? Perfect. 1 week, bang, knock out, go. So it's strategically when I fly, when I'm staying. But this is kind of interesting for you. I'm actually, for the next 2 months, just going to do nothing. No, I'm not. There's no events really even happening anyway. But basically for 2.5 months, nothing. And that's kind of a good thing, because it's a good reset for the show. It's a reset for what the message is. It's a reset for the content. It's a reset just in general. And I think a lot of us are always go, 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 go. But sometimes we got to like, wait a second, pause, reset. And when you reset, that's when the things start really making sense for people. And again, not just real estate, not just business, but just personally, like you gotta really find what is driving you, what is making that passion go. Like, what is it that what is it that you're going to share from that journey that you're going to be able to share light on others?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you need the reset. I mean, you have the vacation time or off time, and everybody needs that. Some people think that, I can go on and on and on and on. But I mean, eventually you lose your purpose, and you lose why you're doing the stuff that you do. And then everything can get lost. So it's important to know to take time off, to reset, and to repurpose everything.
Yeah. And that's where I feel like I'm at right now, which is just great. Like you kind of, it, right? So, and it's great because the first half of the year, I mean, you saw how many events there were. It was a trade show, and then it was a RIA, it was a 10 grow. It's crazy how much stuff there is. But they will be there, right? These events will be there. I mean, they'll start popping up maybe late August, September, and that'll be a whole new circuit.
Yeah. And is that a big part of your business, those speaking arenas and talking about probates, or talking about in all kind of conventions? Does that bring a lot of business to you?
Indirectly, it could. I think it's more the brand awareness and the name. And I think that's kind of what has really helped with the business side, the credibility, and like if you're referring somebody over, like, wait a second, no, we saw Al talk at this conference. Like, it, there's more relatability. So I think having done the speaking for 2 years on the circuits really helped just solidify. Yeah, oh yeah, look, we saw him at this. Yes, we're reaching out. Hey, yeah, we talked about this. Or yeah, it could happen. Somebody saw me. This is what happens all the time. Hey, Al, I saw you speak a year and a half ago at this meeting, and I finally got a probate. And I'm like, insane. It's like,
Amazing.
yeah, it's like, it's almost like, Doron, you do direct mail to somebody in Pompano Beach.
Right.
And you're like, I'm not going to hear from them. And like a year later, they're like, hey, I got your letter. It's like, so speaking's been great. And I love it. I mean, I love speaking. And I know that it's more than probate for me at this point. Like, obviously that's definitely the message and the business, but I realize that there's always a message to convey with business and personal and health and how it all kind of interconnects together. That's the power of being able to speak on stage.
Yeah, and it's being a business person and an inspiration to other people, and everything kind of connect. So yeah, I love that. So I want to move to the final round of 4 success questions.
Can't
wait. For our successful viewers and listeners. So I know you've been to transformation yourself. So what is your 3 best success habits that you have in your life or your business?
Wow. It's exercising for sure. I think it's waking up early, exercising, and then time blocking your entire day. The last one is really important because it's no-go zones. Like, for example, the morning time block, or maybe a time block lunch, or a time block nothing is getting booked from 5 to 8, or I have a time block before my show. It's really important because the exercise is definitely the time for thinking, for regrouping, for growing, and it's your time to just be in your element, right? And then waking up early. I mean, there was so much to talk about with the journey. I was staying up until 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 in the morning.
Wow.
And I made a 180. Instead, I'm like waking up at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning. It's like made a whole transformation. And it actually got my day started. You reset. So huge right there.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. Those are great points, actually. The time blocking, the exercise, and the dead zone, or how you call it. So yeah, what's the next question I have for you? What is a good resource that you use or you can give us to use in our business?
Just in general?
Yeah, just any kind of a resource that you use in your business or in general.
Relationships.
Yeah.
The relationships you make with people is going to be the most practical thing that can help you grow. Because when you build those relationships, you leverage the community because you're doing deals together, you're working on projects together. You may know somebody that's doing this or that. You can look things up online for sure, but it's the trust and reliability and relatability that you have with each other. That's what's going to change.
Definitely. Yeah. Relationships and network is definitely a huge resource that you can have in your business and can propel your business and make it bigger and actually make it easier for you to do what you want to do and where you want to go. So yeah, and I love that. So the next one I have for you, what are your 3 tips for making money in real estate or in business in today's market? Everybody's saying it's a crazy market. So
3 tips, find your niche. Because if you find that one niche that you know how to systemize, automate, and monetize, you will prosper from that, because those are the leads that are going to keep coming in, the bread and butter, right? Like for me on probate, it's been huge, right? Another tip is knowing your value. Don't come off the price. So, for a long time, people would call and I give my price for probate and they'll say, oh, that's weird. We called somebody and he said it was going to be $1,000. And I'm like, you know what? Go for it. Go to the person that's going to charge $1,000. because I know my value and that's their value, and I can't go to that level. So always know your value. And the other tip is you got to play boss. When you're with your team, you have to always lead every single day, whether they like it or they don't. And
Wow.
I can tell you, my team never expects what I'm going to do each and every day. They don't know what's coming, and I do it because I'm trying to train early now. I don't want it to be issues later that pop up that they didn't know. I want to. It's my way of, hey, get it and go on, because we got work to do. So be a boss. Be a boss in your business, and don't be afraid to do that.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. And I especially love the last point that you gave, that, I mean, be the boss, and I mean, don't be an expected, like when you go into your business, have something unique every day, or, make sure your business is going where you want to go. Yeah, I love that. So, I mean, the last question I have for you for today. So, can you share any valuable insight or strategies that you have through your podcasting or public speaking that help you excel your real estate or probate practice?
Interesting. I think it was really finding that niche for myself that ended up being a need. I mean, it's a need for the investors. It's a need for the real estate agents and the title companies. So by finding that need and being able to find that system, I officially do, like, I'll do these things quickly and waiting until closing to get paid. By having that message, it was the ultimate sell. And so using that platform and building relationships with, like you, Doron, building relationships with you, building relationships with the other investors, and by having people on the show and speaking on stage, speaking about it, has had this like back and forth of, well, wait a second, hey, we're seeing Al, we got a probate deal. In Florida, we know where to go. So I think it's a matter of recognition. It's finding the niche, being recognized for being that knowledgeable expert in that industry, and being able to share that message.
Yeah.
And take it, right. And people recognize when you do that.
Right. Right. And I can tell you from my experience that when I do the podcast and I interview people, I get to learn so much from other people, from other businesses, what they do in their business. And it's sometimes it's eye-opening and gives you a lot of tips for your own business. And also if I go to networking events or I speak at places and I get to meet people and talk to people, it's always kind of like an eye-opening and gives you more fuel for your own thing. So that was from my own experience.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
100%. I
yeah,
mean, that's what it's all about. In our business, it's all about that.
exactly. So what is tell us what's the goal? What's the goal for next year? Where are you heading?
That's the question, right? That's the time off that I kind of want to reset and see where things are going. I've learned just doing what I do every day. I take things day by day. I always see ahead, but right now is the time to kind of reflect on what am I doing? What have we done? What's the message going forward? What, where are things going? Are the team's growing? So I think having that answer, I will have a better idea come fall or come later, because it's
I see a book, I see a movie, I see a law firm. I see a lot of stuff in the future.
Me? Oh man, who knows, right?
Exactly.
My
Sky's the limit.
Yeah, my most important thing, I'm always focused now on my health more than ever. I'm focused on my business more than ever. I'm focused on just the things that we got to make money, right?
Exactly.
So I'm focused on the growth. I'm focused on the law firm growing, and we'll just take it from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. So for people that want to get in touch with you, they want to talk to you, they want to ask you questions, how can they find you?
Oh, wow. So social media, huge, right? Social media. So you can find me on Facebook under Al Nicoletti, Facebook. YouTube, my YouTube channel, posting videos and long form and shorts. That's where the show gets posted, video version, and in Facebook. Instagram at Attorney Nicoletti. You can find me there. And the show is on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Audible. You won't want to miss it. We go live every Wednesday, 9 p.m. And www.alnicoletti.com, 904-999-0053.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Al. That was amazing. I always love talking to you. I always love hearing the probate stories and connecting with you. And yeah, thank you so much for all your knowledge and advice.
No, thank you for having me. Thanks for always being a great friend. It's so great that we got to see each other, even in person at Adam's event like 2 years ago. And
exactly.
I mean, thank you for doing this and being a resource for the realtors and investors out there, especially if you haven't been a part of Doron's Facebook group. It's probably one of the biggest investor Facebook groups out there. It's insane. So make sure you go join that and make sure you subscribe to this podcast.
Thank you so much, Al.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Successful Investor Show. If you're enjoying this podcast, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us on the next episode of the Successful Investor Show.